As we celebrate the International Day of Women and Girls in Science, we are incredibly honored to welcome Dr. Magdalene Moran, CEO of Topo Therapeutics, a true trailblazer in the field of drug discovery. Dr. Moran is a leading expert in targeting notorious challenging transmembrane proteins like the V-ATPase pump, which, as we know, is critically implicated in the range of devastating central nervous systems, pain, and renal diseases. Her 20-year career includes successfully advancing therapies to clinical trials, most recently leading Caraway Therapeutics acquisition by Merck. Dr. Moran's exceptional ability to tackle complex scientific challenges resonates deeply with our own commitment to overcoming the most significant hurdles in V-ATPase research. We are confident that her leadership and deep expertise will be invaluable as we strive to develop effective treatments for V-ATPase related conditions. That's why we invited her to be a member of our scientific advisory board, and we're so excited to hear from her today. Enjoy. Awesome. Yes, let's do this. I prepared a few questions, but
Great.
uh, this can be as fluid as possible. We don't have to stick to a script or anything. I really want to get to know you a little bit more, get to introduce you a little bit more. And I actually started with a question that's a little bit maybe on the personal side, a little bit out of the box, maybe, which is so from your beginning, what sparked your initial interest in science and research? And was there any particular person, event, experience that set you off on this track?
So I was very fortunate. I grew up in New York City. And so one of the things I had the opportunity to do, even as a very young child, was go to the American Museum of Natural History. Um, in sort of a funny career trajectory when I was about 4 or 5, I guess I was 4, my initial aspiration was to be president. Um,
Great.
and then President Reagan got shot. And as a 4-year-old, I clearly did not want to get shot. So I decided, second best would be Pope. Um, but the Pope also got shot. If you happen to remember that time frame. And then choice 3 was scientist, which was really inspired by, having the chance to visit, the wonderful museum in New York and getting to see, all of the amazing things, whether it be development or evolution, and really being captured by those. So, past kindergarten, there was never anything I wanted to do other than be a scientist.
Okay, okay. So the follow-up question that I have to do is, were there any scientists hurt in your decision?
No, fortunately, it was a relatively safe time for scientists. So it
Okay,
seemed like
good.
everybody was okay for a period of time.
I good. I was just like, I was concerned because it's like,
Yeah,
okay, present, shot, hope, shot,
so
scientist.
seemed
Okay,
okay.
okay, good,
Or at least
good.
didn't make the news if they were.
Well, let's just stick with
Yeah,
no
there are
scientists
no
were
scientists were injured in this decision.
in your career decision. This is amazing. So, making a little bit about the day that we are celebrating.
Yeah.
What obstacles have you faced as a woman in science, and how did you learn how to navigate them?
I mean, I think for a lot of folks, it's really just about finding your voice, and figuring out how to, advocate for yourself, but also how to make the best of whatever, the feedback you're given and figure out from that feedback what you want to take, and what you
Mm-hmm.
can learn from, and what, you hear, but maybe you don't want to take. And I think that's, part of that learning process. The other thing is recognizing that science, as you know, is such a small community, right? You know, the interactions and the relationships that you build with people are essential, from every perspective in terms of your career, in terms of advancement, in terms of making connections, in terms of
Mhm.
finding support, in terms of being able to mentor other people. All it's such a tight and relatively small community when you get right down to it, that building
Yeah.
those relationships and investing, in the people around you is essential.
So, with that answer, I would ask you for your advice. Which advice would you give to a young woman that is considering a career in research?
So, research is hard. And part of the reason it's hard is because we're trying to do things no one has done before. And as a result, you fail a lot more often than you succeed. And
Hmm.
so I think one of the most important things to think about is, how does that make you feel? Are you going to be motivated by trying to get to that success, realizing maybe it's 1 in 10? Or is that going to be something that, so many of the people who go into research are such talented students who have performed so well academically. And I think one of the challenges that they face when they go into the lab is, suddenly you're not getting 100 on a test. Your experiment failed, or it didn't show what you thought, or the hypothesis was wrong. And learning to realize that you're gaining something. Those failures are actually driving things forward when you do the experiment properly. And being able to take energy from that is going to be essential if that's what you want to do. You need to go into research because you love research. And so you have to have that passion. And if you do, it's going to be the most exciting thing, you'll ever do, because there'll be moments where you literally know something that no one else in the world does. But there's also going to be moments where you spend 6 months trying to get something to work, and your protein has just crashed out of solution, or there was a contaminant and it didn't work. And you know being able to take something from that and still drive forward is going to be one of the key determinants to your success.
Do you remember the first time you found something that you were like the first one or one of the only ones that?
Oh, I mean, I was very fortunate. One of the things that I got to do early in my career was clone some of the novel ion channels. And, I had the sequence and they weren't in the database yet. And I had this thing that we then worked together to figure out what it did. And, one of them turned out to be the voltage gated proton channel that, people had been looking for really a long time. I also remember sitting on the floor in the cold room crying because my experiment that I'd been working on for, 6 months just showed that what we'd been following was a giant artifact. And,
Oh
took a few
no.
moments to pick yourself back up and go do the next experiment. So there's really sort of that ups and downs. And, being able to maintain balance in that, I think, is one of the things that's essential for success.
Amazing, amazing. I can imagine. Never, never, never. I think I have done something like that where I created something that no one else did it before me. And I gotta say, it's fascinating
Yes.
from a non-scientist's perspective, very fascinating. And so, moving a little bit forward to your career from your pharmaceutical experience, and link it a little bit with our foundation, what and the work we do. How crucial do you think that patient-focusing research and approaches are on developing effective treatments and improving patients' outcomes?
I mean, I think it's absolutely essential because what we need to do is understand disease. And as we're setting up our research programs at the earliest phases of discovery, we need to understand what we're trying to treat, i.e., make
Mhm.
sure that if we are successful, if we do have that, burst of inspiration or moment of success, that is going to be something that's meaningful to patients.
Mhm.
So, starting with the patient and understanding what's important to the patient or the caregiver is absolutely essential, because that dictates, what our outcome should be, even at some of the earliest stages of experimentation. I think the other amazing thing that foundations do are help bring attention to these diseases, right? There may be some fundamental mechanisms that people are interested in, but hadn't appreciated the relationship to disease or how dysfunction in these mechanisms might actually impact people. And being able to apply that, I think, is very inspirational for researchers. You know, the idea, I think, that keeps a lot of the folks in pharma going is thinking there's a chance that something we do could change the world, right? This could make
Mhm.
somebody's life better if we manage to be successful. And that's, I think, intellectually one of the things you use to weigh against all of the potential for failure. It's like, yeah, it may fail, but imagine if it doesn't. And I think the patient foundations like yours, one of the things you guys are so powerful at is showing people the patients, right? These are the people who could benefit from,
Mhm.
your having an impact here. And I think that is very motivational to the scientists.
Okay. So specifically, what kind of impact do you see an alliance of families like the V-ATPase having, and what can they achieve together that it might be more difficult if they just go along individually?
Well, I think one of the challenges for ultra rare disease is actually understanding the disease, right? What does the disease look like? What are the key features? What are the fundamental biologies that we're really looking to improve? And when you have a disease that's as rare as V-ATPase mutations, every person is essential, right? You only have like 200 people. So every person is 0.5% of what's happening in that disease. And that means they're a critical representation for us to start to understand the whole. And so to me, having the people come together is so important because, first of all, it allows us to focus, but it allows us to figure out where we want to drive. Because if we're going to come up with a cure, we need to also come up with a trial. And that means we need to understand, in this case, probably a biomarker for disease. And knowing where everybody is on that at the beginning and knowing who those patients are and that we would be able to reach them is essential for motivating resources to come forward.
So, what would you say to our beloved families that haven't filled out your surveys? I know who you are. You have like a good message for them?
Well, I mean, just we appreciate that you guys have a lot going on. I mean, everybody facing this disease is trying to juggle a million things at once. But, if you can fill that out, if you can get us the information, we can try to make better and quicker decisions for everybody who's facing those same challenges.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much for your answer. It was